I get a lot of inquiries about buying land in the Bay Area, and most of the time they fall into two camps. The first one, you've got a buyer that has plenty of money. Maybe they just want to build a dream home, something totally custom. Then you have the second group, the ones trying to find a workaround to the Bay Area's insane home prices. The question usually is, what if we just buy land and build on it? That's got to be cheaper, right? Now, let me give you a quick example of that first type. I had a client who bought an acre lot in one of the most sought after neighborhoods in the East Bay. This place was all custom homes. And one of the neighbors, a certain NBA superstar, they originally wanted to build a 7,500 square foot main house and a 1,500 square foot guest house or pool house. For context, a 1,500 square foot home is a little above the East Bay median in home size. But they didn't stop there. They ended up building a 15,000 square foot main home. I didn't even ask how big the guest house was or the pool house. I was still trying to wrap my head around the main house. It was freaking huge. Now, this video isn't really for that type of buyer. This is really for the value-oriented buyer trying to avoid a financial disaster. Hey, real quick, before we continue, please do me the honor of subscribing if you're not. That is, if you like this video or at least find it entertaining. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. Thank you in advance. Let's dive into why buying land might not be the bargain you think it is, and the 5 things you need to watch out for. First up, zoning and land use. Just because a piece of land looks perfect doesn't mean you can build what you want on it. In urban parts of the Bay Area, zoning is often like a mosaic. One parcel allows duplexes, the next one over doesn't. One street allows townhomes, the next one requires single family only with strict setback regulations and height restrictions. I've seen buyers get excited about building a duplex only to discover that their specific lot only allows a single family home, and they need a 20-foot front setback, 10 feet on each side, and only 30% lot coverage. At that point, you're left building a glorified tiny home on a full-size lot. But here's where it gets even trickier. Let's say the zoning does allow what you want to build. Maybe you want to add a duplex or build a couple of townhouse-style homes. Totally legal according to the city code, right? But the neighbors, they might throw a fit. They'll show up at public hearings, submit complaints, pressure the city council. I've seen projects get delayed for months or even get killed just because neighbors didn't want more density or didn't like the look or just didn't want the change. Let me give you another example. I had this one client who once bought a property and planned to tear down the existing home and build a brand new one, triple the size of the original. Before he could start, we had to go through a public hearing. And I say we because I ended up being the one to represent him at that hearing. Let's just say it wasn't fun for me. The neighbors were all skeptical, worried about parking, construction noise, blocking sunlight, all of it. So I told my client, we've got to flip this. Let's open the house up, bring your architect and your contractor, and invite the neighbors over for a little open house. Light hors d'oeuvres, nothing fancy. Let them see what you're building, and more importantly, let them meet you. And guess what? I was right. That single move changed everything. It eased tension, built goodwill, and helped us move forward with a lot less friction. The point is, how you approach a project in an urban setting can be just as important as what's on the plans. Zoning is only the starting point. You've got to think about feasibility, community politics, and how you're showing up in the neighborhood. Now let's talk about the second major issue, utilities. This is one that catches a lot of buyers completely off guard, especially here in the Bay Area. You see a piece of land surrounded by houses and you assume, well, it must be connected to everything, right? And by everything, I meant utilities, electrical, sewer, water. Not always. Just because it's in a developed neighborhood doesn't mean it has access to water, sewer, gas, or electricity. I've seen situations where the nearest hookup is hundreds of feet away, and it's your job to get those services connected. That means trenching across other properties, if you're even allowed, or paying for infrastructure upgrades just to get started. The cost to all this, it adds up. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars just to get the basics in place. And of course, I have another example for you. I had a client who had subdivided his land into 3 parcels. The original house sat on the front lot, and that property was fully connected to public utilities, water, sewer, power, everything. But the 2 new lots he created, they were behind the main house and had a separate street access. And while that looked great in paper, you don't have to go through his land, there was a problem. They weren't connected to anything. No water, no sewer, no power, no gas, nothing. That meant that whoever bought those 2 backlots wouldn't just need to build a house. They also need to figure out how to bring in the utilities from scratch. And depending on where the nearest connection points were, we're talking about tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands in unexpected costs. So just because a parcel is technically in city limits or near other homes, don't assume it's plug and play. You have to verify where the utility connections are, what it takes to access them, and if the city will even allow you to run new lines where you need them. Let's move on to issue number 3, permits and timelines. Now, this is where a lot of first-time land buyers get completely blindsided. Just because you have the plans, the zoning checks out, your neighbors are all good, doesn't mean you can start building next month. In the Bay Area, the permitting process is slow. You're dealing with multiple departments: building, planning, public works, fire, environmental health, sometimes even historical review. I've seen permit approvals take 9 to 18 months before a single nail gets hammered in. Add in delays from missing paperwork, required revisions, and the occasional neighbor objections and scheduled hearings, and that simple build turns into a logistical headache. One client that I worked with thought he'd be in his new home within a year. He didn't break ground for almost 2 years. And during that time, guess what? He was still paying taxes, still paying interest on the loan, still had to pay his architect and the engineer fees. Time is money, especially if you have carrying costs. Now, let's talk about number 4, construction costs. This is where the buy land and build dream really starts to fall apart for a lot of people. Construction in the Bay Area is not cheap. Between labor shortages, materials, permit fees, and strict local codes, you're easily looking at $400 to $700 per square foot to build. And that's just for standard construction. Start adding in design features, upgrades, or green building requirements, and that number goes up fast. So even if the land seems affordable, you might end up spending more than you would have if you just bought an existing home and remodeled. And here's something else most people don't consider. If you're planning to build something modest, like 1,200 to 1,500 square foot, many general contractors won't even call you back. Why? Because your small project doesn't pay as much as the bigger luxury builds. So you're competing for attention in a market that's already stretched thin. Okay, finally, last major issue, resale and your exit strategy. Let's say your situation changes. You get a job relocation. Life happens, and now you need to sell that land before you build. Here's the hard truth. Vacant lots in the Bay Area, even in great locations, are tough to sell. Why? Because most buyers don't want the risk, the red tape, or the long timelines. They want turnkey or at least close to it. So unless you've already done the heavy lifting like getting approved plans, permits, or utilities in place, buyer pool is small, really small. And when that pool is small, you either wait a long time or you sell for a lot less than you hoped for or maybe even paid for. Here's the thing. I get a lot of calls from investors. People who flip houses, build ADUs, you name it. And every time I tell them, hey, I might have a lead on a vacant lot, something you could subdivide or build a few homes on, guess what? 99% of the time, they don't even let me finish. They just say, nope, not interested, not into building from the ground up. No hesitation, not even tell me more. And these are people with deep pockets, experience, smart investors who know what they're doing. If they don't want to touch it because of the cost, the time, the red tape, the risk, that should tell you something. So should you never buy land? No, of course not. But if you do, you need to go in with your eyes wide open. Plus, deep pockets and lots of patience. Urban land in the Bay Area is complex. There are zoning surprises, utility issues, permit delays, high building costs, and major resale risk. The dream is still possible, but it takes planning, patience, and the right team behind you. If you're thinking about buying land and want someone who's been through the process and can help you avoid these traps, reach out. I'm happy to guide you through it. And hey, by the way, again, if you found this video helpful or at least found me entertaining, hit that like button and consider subscribing and share it with someone who's thinking about building. Thank you for watching. I'm Mac Rogers. I'll see you in the next one.